Should you buy NASCAR 25? That's the question everyone's been asking me all weekend. So today I'm going to answer that by providing you guys my opinion on the good and the bad of NASCAR 25 so that you can make the decision yourself. But with that being said, the TLDR for me personally is that I am having a blast with the game. It's very fun to drive, the AI is great, and if those are the two things that you are prioritizing over everything else, this game is a no-brainer. If you're looking for some more detailed experiences, then maybe keep watching the video and we'll go over what's strong and what's a little bit weaker in NASCAR 25. Let's start with the good, and I might spend a little bit less time on the good, but it's because the good things that NASCAR 25 does is big, broad, and overarching in a way to where there's a lot of smaller good things that will fit into each good category of things that I've observed. The bad things might be a little bit more nuanced, a little bit more detailed, but they still affected my enjoyment of the game overall in a way where I'm just trying not to nitpick things. I'm trying to really choose things that are really affecting how I'm playing the game. My number one good is going to be the AI. As a whole, racing against the AI in NASCAR 25 has blown my expectations out of the water. I was cautiously optimistic of the AI going into this, seeing the previews and all that stuff, and with a little bit of AI tweaking in my career mode, in my single races, it has been incredible to drive against. Nothing like I've ever driven in a console arcadey NASCAR game before. The main strength of the AI comes from their ability to take multiple lines. A lot of AI in other NASCAR games limit themselves to one preferred line where everyone starts lining up, and if they're out of the preferred line, they're automatically just a little bit worse. With this game, at many tracks, you'll find the AI capable of taking multiple lines and driving around the same speed. It makes the racing feel a lot more real, especially when everyone's not just fighting for a single line. Maybe even more so than real life, multi-groove is really a thing. It feels like no matter how you approach the corner, you can get through it. And while that might not always be true in a realism sense, for a gameplay sense, it is incredibly fun when you consider the simcade nature of this game. But racing with the AI is not limited to just racing for position. The lap car AI was genuinely fun to race against, which is really weird to say about lap cars because they're usually supposed to be annoying, right? But they were annoying in an endearing and good way. In some sense, sometimes the AI would stay on the high side and let you by. But sometimes the AI would try to race you to the bottom. I would get cut off by the AI sometimes they just let me by. It felt like there was a good variety of interactions that I would have where it wasn't just the same thing over and over again. One thing that can become really boring in racing games sometimes is if one technique works every single time and you can just spam, say, dive bombing a car. If you could dive bomb the AI every single time and have it work, well, then that's kind of boring. But sometimes this AI in this game takes the bottom line before you can dive bomb them, and then you're kind of screwed if you hit them in the back because of the little weird interactions with the damage and crash physics in this game. But that's for another point in the video. Overall, I think the AI is the biggest selling point of this game right now, which is no small feat. And for all the races I've done in my career mode and the single races, I have always had good experience racing against the AI. With the exception of road courses, they can feel a little bit weird sometimes, but I think that's more to say about the road course tracks as a whole in this game and not really the AI on the road courses. My number two strength of this game is the driving physics. That was something that I was very optimistic about going into this game from watching the other content that other people put out, but the driving physics really do feel like the definition of simcade. There is some aspect where you are able to understand what the car is doing based on the inputs that you're putting into it, being able to make good educated guesses, but at the same time, it is forgiving enough in most scenarios, and it is also a little bit slidey and arcadey in some scenarios, kind of exaggerating what you would feel in the sim, to the point where you can feel all the different types of feelings while without being able to really understand the really micro things that you would in sim racing. My initial reaction to the physics was a cup race at Charlotte, which was incredibly difficult to race. But ever since then, I've never had an issue in intermediate track. They actually became a lot easier to drive. So maybe my first impression of those where I said it was the hardest game ever was just a Charlotte specific thing. Because when I did cup at Vegas, it was actually pretty easy to drive and pretty fun to drive. I don't think that it was any barrier of entry to it. And there was a lot of drafting and all that stuff. Where this game shines is in those intermediates. Whether it be when it's really difficult like Charlotte, it was a fun difficult, but sometimes it's easy like at Vegas, and it's also a fun easy in that case. The intermediates are where this game shines, but This game starts to struggle a little bit when you get to the tracks that require braking. We'll get into that later, but I want to stay on the positives. Overall, the steering physics, the driving physics, all felt within the realm of Simcade to me, probably like halfway between Heat and iRacing, maybe a little bit more towards iRacing, but definitely not full sim, to the point where if you needed the assist, you'd probably even feel more like that. But overall, I was happy with it. I enjoyed driving it, and I think a lot of people of many different skill ranges will enjoy it too. Number 3 is Superspeedways and the drafting model. Very impressed by the Superspeedway on this. It goes back to the AI a little bit because the Superspeedway AI here is really good. Really willing to just put it all out there, 3, 4, 5 wide, crazy bump drafts. They're willing to just push you really hard. They're willing to take pushes. The bump drafting isn't as really intense as it is in iRacing. Like if in iRacing, if you push someone off center, you spin them out. Here you have a lot more stability there, which is great. That's what I would prefer for a game like this, and it's super fun. Really love the Superspeedway driving system, with one exception that we'll get to later. But overall, Superspeedway's mega fun. Graphics and sounds, to me, I was very immersed in the game while driving. In the cockpit view, graphics look great to me, my eyes. I'm not the biggest graphic enthusiast, so maybe other people have different opinions, but for my eyes and my ears, very immersive, had no issues at all with any of the sights or the sounds of this game. Online, and specifically the netcode, was surprisingly good. There were times where I was just hitting a lot of things, hitting a lot of other cars, and nothing felt crazy like sometimes in iRacing where you would get ghosted or net coded. Never felt anything like that. It was very stable in the online, which I was shocked about. It really felt good for what it was, and I'm sure there'll be some situations where it's tested and goes a little crazy, but my online experience, outside of like the lobbies themselves, which whatever, I don't care, but the actual netcode performance felt really good to me. Another positive is that the force feedback works now on PlayStation. Woohoo! It's not super detailed force feedback like you would feel in iRacing. It's definitely not sim force feedback. It basically is just adding resistance when your car is under load, which is helpful, but like I thought from the previous video, it's not game changing. It's not making me particularly any better. It's just reinforcing what you already can see and hear in the game. It's not adding any new detailed information like a sim could. So when you hear people say that NASCAR 25 has good bones and something to build on, I was taking that as like corporate speak at first, like, oh, that's just what people say when they're just trying to put lipstick on a pig or something like that. But truly, the core of this game, the actual driving car on a track against AI, is 10 out of 10, amazing for a NASCAR console game. It's very similar to NR 2003 in my head. NR 2003 being a lot more sim side of things, but if we put that onto a console with the more arcadey side of things, I really think NASCAR 25 is up there. Really enjoyed the driving for the most part in this game. So now that the NASCAR 25 glaze is over, let's go into some of the things that I think NASCAR 25 can improve on, or issues in the game that stopped me from enjoying it more than I did. First off, the depth of the career mode was about what I expected it to be, and that isn't for the best. Unfortunately, this career mode to me just feels like a championship season where you have a checklist of things to do in between each race, and I don't think that that's really the point of a career mode, even if that's what NASCAR career modes have kind of become in the last decade plus of titles. In career mode, I feel like I do not make hardly any decisions that have any lasting impact on my career. The one thing that really can screw you over is if you wreck your car too much because you don't have the resources to repair a car, and then your car is worse for the next race. That's a cool system. That's a good way to keep you honest in a career mode. But after the race, outside of the race, they have little ways that you can make decisions like, oh, do you want some reputation points or do you want some money? But none of those decisions, I think, go far enough to where choosing the wrong one really hampers me. It's more like, do you want one good thing or do you want this other good thing? Most of the entertainment story-wise that I got out of career mode was just me making it up myself on stream. I wasn't really too engaged or immersed into whatever world they were creating for this career mode. The Dale Jr. download info, whatever inserts that they do, they're cool. They're very generic. They're cool, but they also don't happen enough. And I understand that they only have time to do so many of them, but I think I got 2 of them in my first season and a half. of driving in the career mode. So not super common. And then the rival system where everyone's tweeting at you after the race, it's just cosmetic. You can just spam X and never see them, and then you can be a wrecking ball. I haven't seen any sort of consequence to being a wrecking ball besides tearing up your car and having to use more resources or pay more money. One more thing that I kind of wasn't super enthused with about the career mode was how quickly you were able to upgrade your car. I was able to max out my ARCA car by race 6 of the first season. So I basically only had like 2 races of being an underdog and then 3 races of being mid, and then the rest of the season I was overpowered. So that's, I understand that you want to get through the career just one season then go up and then one season and then go up, but I think that it's just the upgrades don't feel like they mean anything if they come so quickly. Probably the biggest issue driving wise I have with NASCAR 25 right now is how the starts and restarts work. You're basically thrust into the car and out of nowhere you're given control of the car and you have to be on your toes, but the kicker is you're always slower than the AI no matter what. No matter what you do, how you shift, whether you're on manual, automatic, you can't get through the gears like the AI, and at some tracks you lose tons and tons of positions from it. At the very least, you lose a lot of time and you have to hold up everyone else. The other really screwy thing that can happen at some tracks is that your pacing will be at like 7K RPMs. So once you're given control, you literally have to react to being given control, click your upshift right away, or else you're gonna red line the freaking car and then everyone just goes past you in that moment that you forget to upshift, and that's screwed me over a couple times. And it's a very janky way to start the race. I wish there was a better way, or at the very least it could be the same way, but I at least want to be on the same level as the computer as I'm getting up to speed. Another issue in the races that came up quite a bit was tire and fuel strategy, where sometimes the AI is just not good at strategy to the point where it gifts me wins. And then at the same time, it feels like my tires are not lined up with the wear for the AI tires. Like, don't get me wrong, I'm good at tire saving, but it feels like it's a switch flipped when you get to the last third, maybe a quarter of the run, where you go from the same exact speed to the AI around you, and then you suddenly become like half a second quicker than them for the final quarter of the run. It's pretty jarring, the fall off that the AI has, and especially if you don't have the same fall off. My guess is that the AI is getting to like 0% tire or something like that before you are, and then you just get to have a ton of time. It makes long run races way too easy for the most part. Like, I really enjoy just racing around these same positions and battling for little bits here or there, but it feels like a lot of that at the beginning of the run is inconsequential. If we get to a long run and then I just suddenly am able to gain mountains of time on people for the final bit of the run. In terms of fuel strategy, I was gifted a few wins because I was able to make my fuel last longer without really even trying. There was one race though at Richmond where it was legitimately a really good fuel strategy race. So I have less concerns about the fuel, and maybe it's just about the AI logic. Another big issue that I'm having is I'm still struggling with the brake pedal. I've actually improved since my first video, so it's not as big of a deal as it was before. But my issue now is that I think that the brakes are locking up too easily in this car, and it's hard to tell what that's doing and why it's happening in the first place. Obviously, brakes locking up means too much brake, but it seems like in some scenarios I'm able to use more brake in the others, especially on road courses. I was able to start to get a groove on it in Martinsville, which is telling me that I'm just basically fixing the skill issue. So I'm not too worried about the brakes anymore, but I would like a little bit more responsiveness to what the brake is doing from inside the car, whether that be helping me get more rotation. All that stuff could be a setup thing as well. So for now, I just would want, again, that brake indicator to at least let me know how much I'm braking, to be able to understand what works and what doesn't, instead of just guessing every time I'm on the brakes. Pit stops and mid-race adjustments not working as a whole. The whole mid-race pitting idea, it seems undercooked right now, and I think it's something they said they're going to be working on. But as of right now, if you're really into like pitting really optimally and the pit strategy side of everything, the experience feels a little bit bare bones right now, and hopefully they're able to build on that. So if you're into like those 100% races where you're doing a bunch of pits, and also pits during the cautions. You're never really gaining or losing positions based on how good your pit crew is. It's just based on what people's strategy is. So if you're really into the pit strategy side of things, then this game is probably a little bit bare bones for that. I put scripted wrecks in negative, but I do think it can potentially be a big positive. I like the idea of it. The idea of having scripted wrecks where, hey, whoever blew a tire and they caused a caution. My issue with it is just how janky it ends up looking from the cockpit from my perspective. Here's an example of William Sawalich just deciding to spin out right there. And yes, it looks like he blew a tire, but that doesn't look like how people blow tires in NASCAR, at least for most that I've seen. So it's just what's something that's supposed to be immersive and kind of add to the excitement of the race ends up just being like, oh, I can obviously tell that that's janky and scripted. But with a bit of fine tuning and getting those situations, the scripted ones, in a way that look more believable, I can see that adding up to a lot of the immersion of the game and causing natural cautions that you would have in real life. So I think that could be really cool. It has the potential to be really cool. I just think right now it's more comedic than anything. Another big thing is the damage and crash physics. It's funny, it doesn't match up with the rest of the game. The driving, the AI, the sights and the sounds, they all feel so immersive and so real. And then the moment that you take damage or crash into someone, you're like, oh yeah, this isn't iRacing light. This is kind of an arcade game. You don't have that huge breadth of damage that you can take visually where your hood is up or some reason, or you take a lot of damage on one side and maybe rips off something. That's definitely probably hard to do, but the amount of ways you can damage your car just doesn't seem completely immersive when everything else in the game is far and beyond in terms of immersion compared to this. So hopefully they'll improve that. I know a lot of people, that's a deal breaker. My goal when I race is not to cause damage and crash, so it's never really a deal breaker for me, but I understand people who it is. My last major gripe that I really think affects how I play the game is the spotter. Not that it's an AI voice, whatever. You can have opinions on that. I don't particularly care a ton, but more that the spotter is wrong a lot. And this matters to me a lot as a cockpit driver. It's pretty jarring to be looking left and looking right for me because I'm not really used to that. So I'm used to relying on the spotter for everything. And the iRacing spotter is great. It's hardly ever wrong. It'll get some nuanced situations wrong, of course, but in general, like proximity-wise, it's never wrong. I find that the NASCAR 25 spotter is just wrong a lot in terms of it'll forget to clear you. It'll forget to tell you that there's still someone there. It'll kind of miss a lot of things. And sometimes it'll call people that aren't there. Just a lot of times, I don't know what's causing it. I find that the spotter is giving me false information or sometimes not giving me information that I need. I kind of don't even listen to it anymore. I just use my intuition, or I look left or look right if I really, really need to. But hopefully they can fix these spotters calls, especially the proximity ones, because it seems like it should be a fairly easy fix. But those are my first impressions during the first weekend of the NASCAR 25 launch, right before we get into the general launch of the game. If any of you guys have played the game before, let me know if you agree with my assessment. If you haven't got the game yet, if you're still deciding, let me know if you have any questions on the game and I can answer them in the comments. All right, thank you all for watching. Hope you have a wonderful day. Hope to see you all on the track.